Over to you guys.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course is brought to you by Permco, a leading manufacturer of high-pressure hydraulic gear, vane pumps and motors, flow dividers, intensifiers, and accessories.
Welcome back to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. The red flag oil on the racetrack has been cleared, and it's time for a sighting lap. Let's take a look at what happened. JP.
Yeah, it's a great start. Watching this again, look at Kayla on the yellow number 19, just rides around the outside of about 3 or 4 riders, gets herself into 4th, which is really key. You know, you get up in that lead group, but it was Ty Scott taking the fight early to PJ Jacobsen with Blake Davis. Kayla there. Matthew didn't get the best start, but he's doing what he normally does and just kind of gets through the pack. Then we had the number 68 blow the motor. And Greg, you know, from MotoAmerica, when we look back at that, where that actually started, it did start back on that yellow paint. It was a lot further back than what we thought. And so Jacob did a good job here getting that bike off the track. And of course, our hard workers out there got the dry sweep down. See the yellow paint on the right side of your screen there. That's quite a ways back. Those leaders would have come up over the top of that hill, I'm sure, and had a problem. So that's the reason for the red flag.
And boy, what a hustle the crew put on. Let's check in with Hannah.
They certainly did a great job cleaning it up. The riders didn't have to wait very long to get back out there today. I touched base with a couple of them, one including Jake Lewis. We spoke to him on the grid about being a factor in this championship. When I talked to him just now, he said, I didn't really get the best start that I wanted, but I really wasn't too pressed about it because I know I have good race pace. And I asked, because it's the 3rd of 4 races for him today, are you happy to have a breather here and have a break? And he'd rather just get this show on the road. He's got one more race after this.
Poor guy has been on the gas.
And I think it's back-to-back for him. So, yeah, and you know, he makes a great point because he was definitely coming back up through the field. Him and Corey Alexander's, you know, he takes his grid spot, his original grid spot again, back on that front row. But, you know, Greg, it's, you know, if you want your day to be a little easier, it's much better to get a good start, isn't it? And conserve some of that energy. But Jake does have great pace on that Altus bike.
All right, we'll take a break. They're getting ready to do their warm-up lap. When we come back, we're going to get Supersport Race number 2, the restart, underway.
A tremendous undertaking by the MotoAmerica track safety team and everyone here at Mid-Ohio to get that oil cleaned up and be able to get Supersport out there in their scheduled time frame this afternoon. Shortened down to 12 laps now, Roger, from the originally planned 18. What impact does that have on the racing?
You just don't have as long. You know, if you get a bad start, like we've seen some of the guys do that first start, you're just losing out on a couple laps. Another thing to look for, I think, in this race is from the red flag, heat cycling on tires. We've talked a lot this weekend about tires with the new pavement. We've heard some guys talk about, man, I really have struggled with my tires after a heat cycle. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
In terms of tires, from the tire selections that were made yesterday, looking through to what riders had selected today, PJ Jacobsen chose a softer front. What will that do?
Just gives him more feel, a little bit more grip on the front end.
Bikes on track for their warm-up lap. They've done a sighting lap, and now we're getting ready to get race number 2 back up in action. And of course, with the way MotoAmerica rules are, this is like, think about it this way, it's a new race. It's a new race. We're down to 12 laps though, but it's the original grid position start for Supersport race number 2. But so far what we've seen, Jason, pretty incredible. However, you're not allowed to change tires. You can do anything you want to the bike other than change tires during these red flag situations. So with an extra heat cycle on them, we're going to see who's got what. And every now and then you'll see some teams make some adjustments that'll do their riders backwards.
Well, you know, the thing is, too, is even the riders that got up in that front group and got to still see those 2 leaders that are leading the championship, we thought it might be a pretty close race today. So maybe they saw some things that were going on with their bikes that they can maybe make some small adjustments, like you say. But now we've got, like, you know, a couple warm-up laps, a couple cool-off laps, plus 2 or 3 race laps on those tires. Let's see if Jake Lewis can get a better start.
Lights out, we go racing. Here we go. All right, looks like a better launch from the front row, but Jake Lewis, he's on that 85. Kind of the same thing, although this time, Kayla Yaakov going around the outside of everybody once again. Wow, out in the yellow paint for Yaakov, but looks like she's going to be in 5th spot, and Jake Lewis definitely a better start, but your leader is P.J. Jacobsen with the number 70, Ty Scott right behind him.
And the problem right now for Matthew Schultz, you see him sandwiched between two GSXR 750s, of Maxi Girardo rather, and Jake Lewis. Jake Lewis can somehow draft by Matthew Schultz. That's exactly what he's not going to want. As he comes down here into turn 6, he doesn't want to go any further back than he is, and he's not gonna. The number 11 does a nice job of holding off Jake Lewis. You see Blake Davis there trying to go up the inside. I think he made it on Kayla. So Blake Davis also trying to get himself up to the front. Better start from Maxi Girardo, seeing him in 3rd place on that top row GSXR 750.
Yeah, from Uruguay on the EasyHealthPlans.com top pro racing machine. The 161 at the early part of the season was our rising star and has definitely kind of mellowed out, and now back up front is the 161. So wow. P.J. Jacobsen on the Ray Hall Ducati Moto with Expel leading the way.
And you can see how much they're going over that dry sweep, Greg. You see every one of our riders are out over that curbing and over that dry sweep. Now we've got a small breakaway between the top 5 guys here, so they're just starting to get away. PJ, Ty Scott, Girardo, Matthew Schultz, and Jake Lewis in that order. Blake Davis back there. Corey Alexander with another good start. Looks like he's just slotted in behind Stefano Mesa. So Corey's come from 15th to 8th on his opening lap as Mesa's gone up underneath Blake Davis, but now they've created that gap to the top 5. Going to be very difficult for them to close that gap back down to this lot.
Is this the way you think it's going to end up? Well, fans of MotoAmerica can pick their favorite riders for a chance to win money, available on your favorite sportbook and daily fantasy sites like DraftKings and Underdog Fantasy. Visit nxtbets.com/playma for exclusive sign-up bonuses for new players and receive cash bonuses. Available in legal states. Check out nxtbets.com/playma to see where you can bet in your state.
Matthew's doing everything he can as Mesa's going really deep and trying to get up the inside of Blake Davis. He had that bike sideways back there. That Kawasaki was absolutely sideways trying to get by Blake Davis. He didn't quite make it. And there's that group again. We see Kayla just behind Corey Alexander as well. And it looks like, we got a red flag. Has Corey got a problem?
I think Corey might have a problem.
Yeah, Corey's got a problem. So I was worried it was another red flag. So not a red flag. Corey Alexander with his leg out, letting everybody behind him know that he has a problem. So that's a shame. So you can see Pagram, Dave Anthony, all in those kind of orders coming up over the top into Thunder Valley.
So for Corey Alexander and the Ray Hall Ducati Moto with roller die informing, looks like he might be pulling into the pits. Yeah, there he is.
Just a weekend. It's a horrendous weekend. The bike was so bad yesterday, Greg. That team did everything they possibly could to get that bike together. They actually sat him out of the race because the bike had some cutting out issues. Now, back up to the front we go. You can see it starting to spread out. We got a 28.2 from Ty Scott as the quickest lap of the race, but it was only a 10th quicker than the guy you see leading at the front. The guy that's got a lot of work to do is Matthew Schultz. Now, for Jake Lewis, he's got to somehow figure out a way to draft past Matthew on the right side. You can see here, Jake Lewis actually was drafting him, trying to get by him, but had to go to the outside. He's got to figure out a way to put himself down the inside of Matthew here, not the outside, and that's the only way he might be able to make that pass work.
But he'll still remain in 5th place. We're talking about the 85 of Lewis on the Altus Motorsports. That's a Suzuki GSXR 750, part of our next generation rules package, where the GSXR 750 gets a throttle by wire system on the motorcycle and is electronically controlled for power for balancing. A similar motorcycle to what the number 70 Ty Scott on that Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki is on, and Maxi Girardo on the 161 on that EasyHealthPlans.com top pro racing machine.
Yeah, it's a nice run from Max Girardo here. Another new track for him, as it is for most. But to be able to come up with a setup and got these like perfect conditions. For Matthew, this is going to be a difficult race, and I only say that because we've got about 9 laps to go, and he's got 3 GSXR 750s that he's got to try to work out as he sees his title contender up in the front with clear track just run a 28.2 compared to the 28.5 that Matthew ran and a 28.7 that Girardo ran. So Matthew Schultz is going to start to get creative to get by these guys.
For more on PJ Jacobsen, your race leader, here's Hannah.
One of the advantages that PJ has kind of had throughout the weekend over Matthew Schultz, despite the extra test day, is that PJ has been here before. And while he hasn't been here since 2006, he said the track layout came back to him quickly. He did say for this weekend, everything's going to come down to tires. It's the same for everyone. He said, there's only so much mechanically that they can do to that Ducati to help with that. But basically just not care once the tire goes off and focus on what exactly he has underneath him.
Yeah, and with the talent, skill level he has, and his experience from flat track when he was a kid, I mean, he likes the bike moving around.
Yeah, he really does. I think he's going to get pressured the whole way here by Ty Scott, though. I think Ty just runs the fastest first split of the race, and Ty's just itching for a good weekend. That whole, Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki team is looking for a great weekend, and right now Ty's giving it to them, and he's going to be able to push PJ as much as he can. As the fuel loads start to go down a little bit, Greg, it'll be interesting to see if PJ can try to get away. But looking at these splits right now, they're pretty even at the front. Now, for Matthew, the worst thing that can happen is the roll speed that he's able to carry on that R6. If he's not able to carry that, he's going to make himself susceptible to Jake Lewis being able to go by him in the draft. So where that's going to be key is up in the keyholes. Matthew right now is working hard on trying to get by Max, and you can see if he gets held up at all mid-corner, Matthew relies on that mid-corner speed to exit. That's why we hear him talking about keeping it on the edge of the tire for longer on the exit of his turns to increase those RPMs. So this is where the problem could rise unless he could go down the inside. Blake Davis and Mesa just off the back of those guys in 7th and 8th now.
Back to the battle for 3rd, and it looks like Jake Lewis is in a good position. Can he pass by drafting Matthew Skoltz? He's going to pull out of the draft. No, Skoltz is really good on the brakes. You can see Gerardo starting to snake around a little bit. And for Matthew Skoltz, I like the fact that right now he's being patient because he knows there's 2 riders in between them, but we still have 8 laps to go in this race. There's time to let these guys, maybe their tires are going to go off, but Matthew has got to start making or thinking about making some moves here if he's going to get closer to PJ, or at least maybe chase down Ty Scott. And right now there is no speed in Matthew to chase Scott down.
Don't you kind of feel too that if Jake was, if Jake's kind of a big guy, we've talked about that a lot. If Jake was a smaller guy, I think that draft would be a little bit easier for him down that back straight. But what you saw there is that Gerardo is okay through the keyhole, but Matthew can't just roll through it the way he wants, and that's the problem that he's going to have throughout this race. He's got to try to pass him like down here into turn 1. He's got to have to do something surprising. Let's see if he does it.
He does. So there goes Skoltz up the inside on the 161. So critical movement for Matthew Skoltz, and it looks like Jake Lewis might try to go around the outside inside move. So now Lewis goes right with Matthew Skoltz, and keep in mind, Lewis said at the top of the show to Hannah, I don't really care who's racing for the championship. All I'm trying to do is get a good result for my Altus Motorsports team. So now it looks like they're going to dispense of the 161 for the moment. Down the back straightaway they go.
But that's exactly what Matthew had to do. He was not going to be able to get close enough at the end of the straightaway to get past the GSXR 750. So he had to get creative. I could see him ramping that up. And you're going to see, Greg, he goes right to the inside of Gerardo. Now what that does is a couple little bumps there. Look at Jake. Jake's already thinking, I'm going to use as much exit as I can and then try to go by Max in that turn 2, which is what he did. And I think now you're going to see the number 11 drop the hammer, and he's going to do everything he can to try to catch back up to the 2 in front.
The only problem that Skoltz has is that last time by the stripe, PJ Jacobsen went fastest lap of the race at a 128.1. And for Skoltz, it was a 128.6 trying to chase him down. So now it all comes down to these gaps that we're going to be looking for. You can see it's half a second between PJ and Ty Scott, 1.7 back from the leader to Matthew Skoltz.
Yeah, and we're just going back here to the other 2 guys that are just running off the back here, Blake Davis and Mesa. But they are what are they, Greg? They're a little bit behind. They're probably about 4 seconds behind the guys in front. So they're a little bit too far back now. This is the fight that I want to see. 28.3 from Skoltz, which is a personal best for him. 28.1 for Ty Scott in second. And you can see what's happening. He's dragging Matthew Skoltz along with him. Jake Lewis is getting dragged along by Matthew Skoltz. So Jake is not done yet as well.
And the 22 of Davis continuing to race up with Mesa. Back to the battle for 3rd, and your championship leader, Matthew Skoltz. The difference between first place PJ Jacobsen is 25 points, and his 3rd place is 16 points, Jay. So you're talking about 11. So if the race was to end right now, you're talking only a 2-point advantage heading into Circuit of the Americas in about 3.5 weeks' time for Matthew Skoltz. And now look how close it's gotten between Ty Scott and PJ Jacobsen. And boy, if you're Matthew Scults, your best friend in the world could be Ty Scott.
There's no question about that. And he's going to be keeping tabs. For Matthew, just puts a little bit extra pressure on himself. But Greg, look, this championship is going to go down to the wire. There are going to be swings in the championship throughout. We've seen that. But most of the time, it's been the two front guys that are leading the championship that have come out first and second. We've been waiting for this, though. We got Jake Lewis, obviously, that's gone fast this weekend. But Ty Scott, we really did pin him as a guy that was going to win multiple races in 2024, and it hasn't materialized. And today's going to give him a good shot at that.
Yeah, it's been a season of up and downs for Ty Scott. We know how good he was at MotoAmerica earlier in the season, but some mechanical issues, some miscues on crashing. But right now, Ty Scott is living up to our expectations as one of the brightest young stars in MotoAmerica on that Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki, trying to chase down that Ray Hall Ducati Moto with Expel. And there's the Strack Racing Yamaha R6. Trying to close the gap, Jay, and last time by we're at 2 seconds, so Scults is doing a little bit of damage, maybe a 1/10 of a second here or there.
Yeah, you look at the leaders, though, they went 28.3, 28.2. Matthew and Jake both at 28.3, so to your point, they've kind of been able to just let that stabilize, but even on this lap, it looks like the two leaders at the front have pulled away even more. Ty Scott with the fastest first split of the race. That's what's drawn the number 70 up onto the back of PJ Jacobsen. Now, the other advantage that Ty Scott has, he sees himself closing in on PJ, and if you saw the last time by, his pit board said plus 1.2. He knew he had some time behind him, so he can just continue to race forward. As Matthew looks like he is trying his best to shake off Jake Lewis now.
So it was 2.1 seconds from PJ to Scults. It's now at 1.9, and Hannah, it just keeps oscillating back and forth.
It does, and one thing for Matthew Scults was that, keep in mind, he had back-to-back crashes yesterday. The team was here till 2 a.m. working hard, getting that bike back together and making some changes. One of the things they changed was shorter gearing for better drive today. Jason, as you said, you know, the R6 needs to operate within a certain window, and he was really losing time coming out of the corners. He told me he wants to keep it flowy and not push too much weight on the rear. But the last thing he wanted to happen today was to get stuck behind the Ducatis and Suzukis.
Yeah, Hannah, that's exactly right, Greg. And you can see he's just gone fastest lap of the race, hasn't he, at a 28.1. Matthew has, but it's going to take a long time as we see Larry Pegram pull into the pits, our podium finisher yesterday, unfortunately out of the race. You know, he did gain 3/10 on the leader that last time through, but with only 4 laps to go and 2.1 seconds, it's going to be difficult. Now, these two, Greg, they start messing with each other a little bit, and Matthew could be right back in it. He's just got to keep himself hitting his marks, going forward, and the 11 might find himself there with a lap to go if these guys start to engage in some sort of battle.
I kind of feel like for Ty Scott that unless PJ Jacobsen makes a mistake, that he's going to wait a couple of laps until it's time to pounce, if he's got the pace to do it. I mean, we know that he can close in on him. What I don't see right now is Ty Scott just running right on the rear tail section of PJ Jacobsen. I'm not sure if it's because PJ is setting such a fast pace at mid-28s at this point, or if Ty Scott's just chilling.
Yeah, well, it could be a little bit of both. I mean, they could both be good in different sectors. 35.3 to 35.1 first sector, 33.2, 33.4. So the 2/10 that Ty gained in the first sector, he lost in the second. But that third sector, they look pretty close. Matthew's getting ready to run another fast lap. Matthew Scults goes 28 flat to 28.6s in front of him.
Okay.
So that's the big jump that we were looking for. And now Matthew is significantly closer. You can see this. And like I said, he might be able to get there with a lap to go. And what he needs to do is just be able to sniff the back of one of these guys to try to outbrake them at the end of that back straightaway or somewhere else. But he's going to have to get creative. I don't know if he can get close enough to him at the end of the back straightaway to do something with him.
Well, I know they shortened up the gearing like Hannah said, and the reason is he needs that R6 to come off the corners a little bit crisper than it was yesterday. But we were also running a different pace yesterday, so that gearing change, not sure how effective it's been in terms of him having clear track in front of him. He just keeps going fastest lap, but it's only 2.5 laps to go in this one. PJ Jacobsen still leading the way from Ty Scott. Matthew Scults in third. So for Ty Scott, he could be doing PJ Jacobsen a huge favor if he's able to stay in this position to PJ. But he could also do a huge favor to Matthew Scults if he's able to pass him.
Well, to your point right now, Matthew's thinking, come on, Ty, just take a shot. Because not only then, if Ty takes a shot at PJ, it might slow them up enough to where Matthew can take a shot at PJ towards the end as well. We're going to come by this lap now, 2 laps by, and look how close Matthew is. He's right on the back of him as he's gone fastest second split. And these two guys at the front, they're going to have somebody visiting them on the last lap. If he's not there by the end of this one, I'll be surprised. Matthew Schultz with a 28.1 to 28.9s in front of him. So he just trimmed off 1.4 seconds in those last 2 laps. And Matthew now is going to be licking his chops, and he's going to be close enough to do something with one of them in turn 1 next time by.
And this last full lap, I have seen quite a bit of movement on PJ Jacobsen's rear end of his motorcycle. We typically see that from PJ, but it's also concerning because if Ty Scott has got a better drive than PJ Jacobsen, he might be able to draft and pass him down the back straightaway as they go now 3 wide. They don't know Schultz is there, and all of a sudden, here comes the 11 right into the lead.
Ty Scott doing whatever he did there by motioning to PJ actually worked in Matthew's benefit, and he has literally closed a 2-second gap in the last 2.5 laps, Greg. So credit to Matthew Schultz here with just running consistent 28.1s. Now Ty Scott's got a whole nother problem in front of him because he thought he saw that 1.2, 1.3 seconds, and Matthew closed that immediately.
So just like that, PJ Jacobsen looks like he might be struggling with some edge grip as Matthew Schultz takes over the lead. And what a change of fortunes. And now all of a sudden, it looks like PJ Jacobsen might come under fire from Jake Lewis and lose more points in this battle as PJ can't turn it. Cannot turn it.
Yep, he's got a problem. Probably when that happens, it's obviously a front tire. He's felt that front tire movement underneath him for some time, and that's why those lap times were going from low 28s to high 28s. We are now final lap. Matthew Schultz out front. Ty Scott's going to try to do something with him.
Whoa, lap traffic.
Yep, a little bit of lap traffic there, but here we go. Can Ty Scott draft this R6 down the back straightaway? This is where the gearing change for Matthew is going to be so key. He's going to be able to jump out of here, hopefully. As you see Jake Lewis now in a comfortable third. Matthew got out of there great.
He certainly did, and Ty Scott worried about what's going on behind him, not focused on what's in front of him. But here they come down the back straightaway for the final time, and Matthew Schultz so deep on the brakes on that Yamaha R6, able to hold off any thought that Ty Scott had on passing him. Now through the up and down elbow dragging section here at Mid-Ohio.
Yeah, and here we go. Now it's a really hard pass, and not only is it a really hard pass from about this lap on, from this part of the lap on. Matthew Schultz, he's a cagey veteran, Greg. He's been around a long time. He's going to be putting that bike in places that he knows it's going to be very difficult for Ty Scott to do anything. And you almost got to think, as bad as Ty wants to win, a podium here for that M4 bike would be a nice thing. Matthew's just got to keep it nice and tight and tidy through this big long right, which is exactly what he's done. Put that R6 in the right spot. He looks like he's pretty good here.
From far back, what a performance from the South African. Matthew Schultz to the line, takes a checkered flag to win and maximum points in this championship and gets back 5 points of the 15 he's lost over the last 3 races to open it up again, and he is pumped. Oh. Jake Lewis ends up 3rd, PJ Jacobsen 4th, and Maxi Girardo, boy, closed up 3 seconds on PJ Jacobsen there at the end. So 25 points for Schultz, 13 points for PJ Jacobsen. Here's a look at the Dunlop race pace, and you can see all those laps towards the end of the race that Schultz was able to put in, including the fastest lap of the race on lap number 9.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what Ty was trying to tell PJ, whether he saw something from PJ or not. But I think if Ty stays tucked in and just goes right by PJ, focused on what he needed to do there, I don't know Matthew could have got as close to him as he did.
You know what I was thinking? I was thinking that Ty was like, as he was passing PJ, saying, hey, just follow me, let's not mess about.
Yeah.
Because they knew at that point that Schultz was coming. They just didn't realize he was going to get there so quickly. What an exciting race, and I bet it was for Matthew Schultz as well as he celebrates with the fans. We'll talk to him when he gets back to victory lane.
What an absolutely incredible run from Matthew Schultz. Roger, I was watching you as you watched that race. You had to stand up.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing Matt coming once he started taking, half a second. They were staying kind of the same there, with 5, 6, 7 laps into the race, and then all of a sudden Matt started making a huge charge, and you could see PJ was struggling, and on that last lap when he went down into turn 1, we got a good shot of his front tire, and it looked like it had a lot of wear on it. You could see he was having trouble leaning over into the corners, and unfortunately for PJ there, the last couple of laps, he's lost a lot of spots, and We also had a rider crash on the last lap out of turn 13. So you can see it was red for the last half of the field.
You see Matthew Skoltz coming around and making his way towards the podium area. This championship battle continues to stay at full heat right now between Matthew Skoltz and PJ Jacobsen. But that win today, Matthew Skoltz has certainly opened up just a little bit of a pad that he can enjoy now with 2 rounds remaining. Let's go back over to Greg and Jason.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course is brought to you by Permco, a leading manufacturer of high-pressure hydraulic gear, vane pumps and motors, flow dividers, intensifiers, and accessories. And by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
5 shots of Matthew Skoltz rolling into victory lane. After a red flag shortened race, we did 12 laps and Skoltz played it to perfection. Made a pass when he needed to, and his victory is 1/10 of a second. But more importantly in the championship, Jake Lewis and Ty Scott. Here's a look at those results. So Skoltz with a maximum 25. Tyler Scott gets himself 20. Jake Lewis gets himself 16 points. PJ Jacobsen with 13. And we can look back on Mid-Ohio race number 2, possibly as a pivotal turning point in this championship. As you can see, it's now 25 points between Skoltz and PJ Jacobsen, but we still have 4 races left in this 2024 season. What a race we had. What a weekend we had here at Mid-Ohio. We certainly hope you enjoyed it. For Hannah and Jason and our entire crew, I'm Greg. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time from Circuit of the Americas.